You were never inadequate. And that's what I was supposed to tell you today. And it's February the 8th of 2026. And it turns out that my entire life was meant to tell you today that you were never inadequate. And I'll tell you how that came about. First of all, if you don't know me, I'm Roger Burnley, and I've been a coach for a really long time, but also a channel for Wilhelm, which is this collective consciousness that I got in touch with that I started receiving in 1989. I wasn't going to always tell you that because it wasn't time yet, as it may not have been time for you to recognize and realize that you exist on this planet at this time to actualize and remember who you are. And I got up this morning. You know how we know the algorithms now about how we're led to information? Well, that information is always in our consciousness, and it is attractive, meaning that we will find things that will come to us that we don't completely understand. But there is an attraction that exists because everything in our world is energy. So one of the first videos that I heard this morning was about why I was reverse aging. And I couldn't explain that either. I'm 75 years old. And people keep saying, well, why you look so young? And then if they only knew what I had moved through in my life, which we all move through really difficult, challenging times, but there was something different. And that's what I was meant to tell you today, because you have a very unique life plan that is energetically connected to the universe, and it's being activated in different ways now because of the changes that are happening in our world. They're not accidental, and you're not accidental either. We just take some time to figure that out and come to understand it. Then I was led back to looking at Alfred Adler, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, I guess. I never studied him. He was born in 1870, so I never knew, but born yesterday, as a matter of fact, February 7th. But he talked about inferiority, and that's the thing that we all feel at some point, no matter what it is that we do in life, we will have those moments, those times of feeling like we're inadequate, that we don't have whatever it takes. And you could have been feeling that now because you're being asked to move beyond that and own who you are. And that's what I had to do. And I needed to be the example. Yesterday, I'm sitting around. This is how it always happens. I'm sitting around and I hear very clearly, go put down the messages for February 8th because you don't believe us. You don't believe that we have given you something that it's already changed your life, speaking to me. This is Wilhelm again, and changed my life, and it could change the world. And I said, no, that's not possible. That couldn't happen. But it's been proven, it's been shown, but I'm still doubting it. And what I'm saying is that we all have fear and doubt about the thing that we're brought to the world to do. And then you start to discover that your gift, the thing that's within you that you might have been judging or being afraid of, is your might be your most valuable contribution that you could make to humankind. Because I do know everyone is meant to do that when they can embody their authentic self. There is no person who is born that has more than another. It's just in consciousness. And what happens over time is that we start to believe something different about ourselves because of how we grew up, how we were programmed, what we were taught, and those algorithms that keep feeding us, telling us that we may not be that person. And I did that. See, I was a vocal coach for the longest time, more than 35 years. I could never tell you why I was doing that because I didn't understand music. I didn't know why I became so great at it because I can tell you that I am. There's nothing that anyone could show me about their voice that I don't understand because I started to understand something inside that individual. And I could not tell you why I was doing that. And then I made a big shift in my life, and which no one could figure out why I was doing that either, especially my family. Why are you moving to this other area? And I resisted it. I had a business partner years ago who told me, I think you're supposed to be doing personal development or something else. I said, no, I'm not going to do anything weird. I'm not going to do anything yoo-hoo-y. That's how I used to call it. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so when I put together the messages, For today, there was also a video, a live channeling session that was held on February 9th of 2024. And I listened to that and I go, oh, wait a minute, that was 2 years ago. And I was saying the same thing. I wasn't saying them, Wilhelm was, but talking about how we have this difficulty in believing something. And that's within each of us, believing in our importance and why we are alive now. And we're alive at what Wilhelm has called a restructuring, which is this big, feels like this big split. Well, the split is happening within you. It depends on how many of us will decide that we're going to remember who we are and our worth and value. And this is a generational shift, meaning that all the stuff from your ancestors, everything you believed before, is coming up to look at you and say, are you going to do something more? And that's what I had to look at within myself. But I'd been doing it for a while because, see, in 2016, I started to receive this and started to know, and I was beginning to work on something then that I was going to give to others. But I was talked out of it, like you might have been talked out of it, because I was going to say, overcoming everything, because I knew that anyone could do that. But then people said, no, no, people won't believe it because we have this other thing called cognitive dissonance, meaning if we haven't seen something done, we're not going to believe it. And so I thought these people were correct until I discovered that they were not. It was just me being fooled again. We get hypnotized, and that's what happened. And then in 2021, I was never going to do live channeling. I was not a person who was the normal channels as you might think of them. I was never that person. I definitely wasn't going to do it in public. That was a little bit too much because we fear being judged. We fear the unknown, but we also fear the judgment of others, we think. But it's always coming from us. It's always coming from us. That's what we fight with the most, is who we can become. And can I break through that barrier that told me it's not me? And that's what I had to do. So when I sat down to put these together, it's clear, and you'll see it in the messages, that I had to become the example. I had to shift. Now, I have never studied astrology or astronomy or any of the sciences. We come to understand that there is a connection when we start to talk about the quantum field or quantum mechanics or things like that, that we don't know anything about necessarily, except it turns out that that's what I was receiving from Wilhelm from 36 years now, 37 years now. That's what it's moving into. And then I did something else. It's called the Wilhelm phenomenon, where I was just sitting down and receiving this information because it was cosmic guidance. It was information, infinite intelligence, as Wilhelm called it. And I didn't know why it was happening. And I couldn't have told you why I was healing. I was experiencing mind body healing that I could never explain to anyone. But then you understand that you have a plan, a path, and it is energetically connected to the universe. So in 2021, I am told that we have given you everything you need to know in your world. We have given you everything. This is why the message for today, you'll see that it says Wilhelm's gift to humanity, because that's what this work is. Because you start to understand there are no people who should be left out of this. Everyone has value and worth. We've just been taught something else. And so I was told that we would move through this period where we were going to go through this huge division in our world. And we were going to see it mainly in the United States because we hadn't dealt with certain things. That's why Wilhelm gave us a new philosophy called Your Life Operating Instructions. I said, that's not possible. I doubted it just like you would have doubted something about yourself. I even went to get help. We all go to get help. I went and had an Akashic Records reading done. I'd never done that before, didn't even know what it was. But then they said, yes, you were given this information to bring forth now. And I kept resisting it and holding back. And then I even tried it on certain people, and they like, wow, they transformed so quickly that it freaked me out. And so then I went into self-sabotage. That's what you do when you can't own that gift that you have. And that's why you hear that so much self-sabotage. What is that? It's just that you are not owning that part of you that is developing now, because it's always in process of developing. That is, as individuals and also as a society, as a world. And we're seeing so many things, especially in the United States, that we said, this, why is this happening? Well, I knew why it was happening because, see, in 2016, I had to sit down and write a paper. I didn't have to, but I was guided to do that. I had to write about I might be slightly racist with misogynistic tendencies. And people say, why are you saying that? Because we all are. If we don't acknowledge it, we don't heal. And that's what I had to get in touch with. And that's why I wrote the paper. And it was funny because right after that, I could feel things shifting in my body. Wow, this is interesting. Because when you acknowledge those things that have been holding you back, it's all existing consciousness, then you start to move to this higher state. And when we talk about that place moving to this fifth dimensional thinking, well, that's what Wilhelm has given us. But I couldn't accept that or believe it because there's a process that we move through, and that is in our consciousness, and we use physical things to do that, our brains. And we've learned about cognitive behavior training, and we've learned about epigenetics and neuroscience. Well, that's all the things that I was receiving, and I could not have known that. And then I doubted everything. So the other day, well, a while ago, I sat down because I listened to another Wilhelm channeling session from a couple of years ago, which said Roger has savant capabilities that he keeps ignoring. And I did. I didn't want to know that. I put it away and I would just conveniently forget it. And I would hear, you have a selective memory. We all do because it doesn't make sense. How could this be me? How could it be you? That's what you keep thinking. And I'm telling you, there's a process. My life was meant to bring in the process, which I did not understand. And then something else happened. We don't want to talk about certain things because we become afraid, especially if it comes down to politics or anything like that, because we haven't formed the belief in who we are in this form, this perfect place. As Wilhelm says, you're an eternal spiritual being. You've always existed. And yes, we've done bad things in our past. All of us have in the past that we don't remember because it's always in consciousness and our lineage, we've carried it forth. That's all. And I had to go back and look at all those times where I started forming beliefs, which I picked up from everyone else that told me certain things. And the biggest one was when this was probably about, I don't know, 40 years ago, I went to a dentist. And for the first time, a new dentist, and it was a woman. I said, "Oh no." See, that's what we used to think. And I said, I can't do that. I've never been to a woman before. This is how we change over time. And we must understand it. But I had to get over my biases. We all have judgment. We all do. If we don't acknowledge that, we're not going to heal and get to the place that we need to get to in our lives. And sometimes it's forced upon you. In 2022, this is going to be something that everybody will think about, especially as you're watching our world today and wondering why are certain people having all this power and money and all of that, and we don't have it because we haven't owned ourselves yet. That's all. And this is the process that we will each move through. So I did a silly thing back in 2022. I was trying to get some money so that I could move into this new direction. And someone made an offer to me and they fooled me. It was a scam. But what happened was they stole one of my channels, my vocal coaching channel, because Wilhelm said, well, you're done with that. If you're not done, but you move on. I'm not moving on. And so then the channel got taken over by Fox News. And because it was Russia who had hacked it. This is all made, we can ignore certain things, but this is exactly what happened. And I've documented it because I spent time with the FBI and FTC and everybody else to say, this is what happened, and or Google did all of that because I wanted people to know, because what I was hearing was that people were believing something that wasn't true. And I knew that at some point that was going to turn into a problem for many of us. I wrote articles about it. They're all on my website. And if you go through it, you can see it. And then I wrote another article recently. I added to it called Crisis in the United States in Crisis, is what it was called, because there are patterns that form over time that we keep repeating until we decide that we're not going to do that anymore. And I was given the work that said, we can't do that. But to accept that I was a savant, that was the biggest one. How could that have happened? I only heard about that word. I didn't know what it meant. And so I put together something the other day to give you a little more education about what that is, because I didn't understand it either. Because how could I receive this information from with no training, no understanding of it, and it was causing all of this to come about? But I did that as well. And then the other thing that happens, we develop technology. Some of us will be afraid of it. We'll be afraid of artificial intelligence or any of that. But as humans, we're meant to develop more so that we can create a sustainable planet. And part of that is new information, which again only occurs in consciousness. So this morning when I got up, I go, why did I feel so drawn to this day to give everyone this information? So I went to my Gemini. I said, why is my birth chart, my astrological birth chart, which I didn't know anything about, why is it related to this day? It explained all of that. And I'll give you that as well so you'll understand, because it's also telling me why I need to change today and what's coming up that you might want to do that as well, because there's another version of you that's waiting to come about, and it is connected to the universe. And that is what I know. And that's why I know you are never inadequate. You are in process of becoming who you are meant to be, and everything that you move through, everything you suffered through, as it may have felt to you, was for a benefit that is being revealed now. And if you start to understand it, you will help change this world into what it was meant to be. And that is what I'm doing now. So I'll leave you with the messages for today so you'll see for yourself. And please listen to the recording of that channeling session. You'll understand even more, because I never remember them. And that is something else I had to become comfortable with, because some channels remember everything. I don't remember a thing. And well, so, I mean, it's some parts of it, but mostly not. And I go back and I'm just as surprised as you are, because I am accessing universal consciousness and what Wilhelm would call ultimate reality, which says every person has worth and value. And this is what, as a society, we are coming to understand now. And so why we talked about it feels like chaos, and Wilhelm gave us why we would see chaos in our lives and world now is because we're attempting to come together and remember who we are. And my role was to bring that in, and that is what I'm doing today, which I'm so glad that you got to hear this video. And I hope that you share it with others and subscribe to the channel. You will understand now why many people have never seen my YouTube channel, because I was hiding. I People keep coming to me, Roger, this should be seen by more people. Now that will happen, because I must shift as you do. And you will understand when you look at my little chart, and you might have fun doing it for yourself, because we can use technology to come to know who we are. And the thing that was important about me seeing Alfred Adler was about individual psychology. That's what's most important. And that's what this work that I could not have told you was going to come about, but that's exactly what it is. And it's been analyzed to be able to prove that to you, because we always want proof. And today you will have it. And now you'll know why you are never inadequate. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you soon.